Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Tuesday Toolbox Talk. My name is Joanne Davis and I am a safety advisor here at the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association. So this is going to be recorded and will be available for later viewing on Facebook as well as YouTube, which we have all our videos on YouTube. You can access them at any time. So today we're going to do our Toolbox Talk on physical social distancing. Okay, so I am going to bring up a PowerPoint, share my screen, and we'll get right into it. Okay, so we're going to talk about physical distancing, also known as social distancing. So first of all, what is social distancing? So Webster Dictionary defines social distancing as the practice of maintaining a greater than usual physical distance from other people and or avoiding direct contact with people or objects in public places during an outbreak of contagious disease. And this is done in order to minimize exposure and reduce the transmission of infection. So the first known use of social distancing in the term and using it was actually in 2003 in San Francisco, and that was during a flu season. So for us, practicing social distancing is done by staying at least 2 meters, which is 6 feet away from one another. As well, you want to avoid personal contact, such as touching, as well as handshaking. This can be interesting. I like to shake hands when I meet people, so this has been an adjustment I've had to make on my part. Usually when you introduce yourself right away, you want to shake hands. So we're going to avoid that during this time. You also want to avoid large groups. You want to keep gatherings at a minimum. If needed, you may need to break up into smaller groups as part of your job and for your meetings and so forth. So here we have an example of a toolbox meeting in the morning here. And you can see that it's outside, an open area, which you want. Looks like everybody is 6 feet apart. However, you can still hear each other, have a conversation, and discuss the health and safety concerns of that day. One thing when you're having meetings, you do want to know that we usually have a lot of documentation. So you want to be signing those documents. And during social distancing, physical distancing, you want to either have, your workers could have their own pen and where they can go up and sign and not touch anything except for their pen. Another way to do this is also electronically, have electronic signatures where they can do an iPad or phone as well. And this is going to reduce contact with other people as well as commonly touched surfaces. Let's take a look at orientation. So we have a couple examples here, some strategies to ensure social distancing during orientation. You want to limit the number of people at the orientation. If it's indoors, you could have a chair in between, giving that 6 feet apart. You could also have most of your orientation done through hosting a video orientation. And that way you only have to do your site specific at that time. When practical, you can move your orientations outside as well, which is really good. So here it looks like we're having another little meeting together, and this is outdoors again, 6 feet apart. I also want to bring to mention that this is at a trailer. So you can have a lot of people coming to the office, in and out and so forth. A good example when it comes to site offices and trailers is to have a lot of the information posted on the outside of that trailer. That way they don't have to enter, and have a phone number which they can call and maybe get their questions answered instead of entering, and again, reducing that contact with other people as well as commonly touched surfaces. Next here we have breaks. Here's a good example of lunch break. You have minimal people inside the lunchroom. Looks like they are 6 feet apart and a lot of space in between everybody. Again, we encourage people to use indoor lunchrooms only when the weather makes it necessary. Actually, eating lunch outside or in their personal vehicles is quite encouraged. It's going to actually give a lot more space. Again, you want to maintain, if you have a lunch area outside, maintain that 2 meters apart as well. So we do want to mention company vehicles. If you're going to be doing ride sharing and going company vehicles, it's going to be hard to maintain social distancing. You want to keep a number of occupants minimal. I've been using the same spots. Make sure to disinfect and clean surfaces in between as well. We do have more information on rideshare and that on our website as well. When you're doing work and it comes to physical distancing here, this is a good example. Everybody has their own space when they're working. They are still wearing PPE, but they do have their own work area, which is really important if you can minimize the amount of people in a workspace and keep them that 2 meters apart. And sometimes you're gonna need a partner when working, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. So when social distancing is not possible, like I said, sometimes you're gonna be doing work and you need help and it takes 2 people or more. So let's get into some considerations that we can take when you can't do your physical distancing. You wanna wear proper PPE, so you wanna use your masks, definitely. As you can see here, this is an example where they're both wearing masks. And you wanna make sure that they have proper training on how to wear their masks and how, donning and doffing, and make sure that it's accessible to them as well. You also want to help reduce the risk of infection by washing your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. It is the most effective way of reducing infection, just soap and water. If it's not available, you want to have hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol available. You want to make sure that hand washing stations and alcohol-based sanitizers are available on site for the workers. And along with that, you want to make sure that you train your workers on how to properly wash their hands. You can review it quickly in a meeting. You can also make sure you have some posters posted just as a friendly reminder to do it properly. Like again, this is very effective, washing your hands often. Next year, we may not be sick. However, sometimes we may have to cough or sneeze. So you want to cover your mouth and nose with the crease of your elbow or a tissue when you sneeze or cough. You want to make sure if you use a tissue that you do dispose of it immediately and wash or sanitize your hands right away. When you're working in close proximity with people, you want to make sure you don't touch your face, your eyes, your nose, or your mouth with unwashed hands. Can't stress that enough. When you're out and about, make sure you're washing your hands continually and try not to touch your face. It's amazing, even for myself, just now that I'm conscious and aware of it, how much I actually do touch my face. So just be aware and just and don't do it. You also want to regularly clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces. So I mentioned the doors to trailers, vehicles, and this can include tools that you may be sharing. So there's quite a long list of things that do need to be cleaned and disinfected frequently on the job site. Now let's talk about schedule. So on job sites, when you're going to be implementing physical distancing, you're going to have some protocols you need to actually do as well as scheduling. So let's take a look at our schedule. You want to stagger start times, breaks, and lunches. Stagger segregate sites into zones, crews, and trades physically separated at all times. You want to limit the total number of people on a site or zone that they are assigned to work in. Limit the number of people allowed in facilities such as washrooms and trailers and eating areas. so you can implement that minimal physical distance. Enclosed lunchroom facilities are only made available during inclement weather. As I mentioned before, you want to provide that outdoor eating and break area. You want to minimize the number of people in meetings. When required, meetings should be held outdoors while maintaining distance. If it's not possible, video conferencing is also another option. You want to design the work site to reduce high traffic areas to provide the minimum physical distancing. One-way staircases can be established when practical. Otherwise, you can have one person coming down and the other person would wait till they come down before the other one goes up. So having that good visual view of who's on the stairs. Certain tasks that will be required workers being close proximity to each other. So you want to have the extra protocol, the sanitization mentioned, extra PPE is going to be important. So work schedules are going to need to be adjusted to provide time for proper cleaning and disinfecting, as well as physical distancing. You're going to have a lower amount of people in that area at that time. So you can help protect yourself by changing your daily routines in order to minimize close contact with others. Self-isolating, working by yourself is going to be the best control. However, that's not always possible or feasible when working on sites. So you want to make sure you follow guidelines and have protocols and policies in place, and that your workers are trained for physical distancing. Okay, so that is our Tuesday Toolbox talk on physical distancing, also known as social distancing. I do want to let you know that tomorrow we are going to have a webinar, and it's going to be on fall protection. We're going to take a closer look at harnesses and their fit, as well as a follow-up to member feedback that we had following a survey that we did earlier. Again, next week, our Toolbox Tuesday, Steve will be presenting that, and he's going to go a little bit more into PPE. I want to thank you for joining us today. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.